Welcome to the New York Post. The latest Hurricane Irma is an extremely dangerous category for hurricane and will continue to bring life-threatening wind, storm surge, and rainfall hazards to the Turks and Caicos Islands and the Bahamas through Saturday. It's tracking toward South Florida, where a hurricane warning was implemented Thursday night. Irma devastated the island of Barbuda Tuesday night and Wednesday morning. The Barbuda weather station reported a 155 mph wind gust just before it failed. Reports suggest the island may have suffered a nearly total loss. On Wednesday, the storm battered Puerto Rico as the eye tracked to the north of San Juan. Intense wind gusts were reported, including 111 miles per hour on Culebra Island and 131 miles per hour on Buck Island in the U.S. Virgin Islands. On Thursday and Friday, Hurricane Irma will pass just north of Hispaniola and Cuba as it moves into the southeast Bahamas. Then the storm could reach South Florida on Saturday night. Severe hurricane conditions are expected over portions of the Florida Peninsula and the Florida Keys beginning late Saturday, the National Hurricane Center said Thursday night. Irma could make landfall in southern Florida as a dangerous major hurricane and bring life-threatening storm surge and wind impacts to much of the state. A hurricane warning is in effect from Jupiter Inlet southward around the Florida Peninsula to Bonita Beach, the Florida Keys, Lake Okeechobee, and Florida Bay. Irma is moving west-northwest, a trajectory that is expected to continue for the next day or two with a decrease in its forward speed. The eye of the storm should continue to move westward away from the Turks and Caicos Islands and toward the southeastern Bahamas this morning. The core of the hurricane will then move between the north coast of Cuba and the Bahamas during the next day or two, and be near the Florida Keys and the southern Florida Peninsula Sunday morning. As of 8 a.m. Friday, the storm had maximum sustained winds near 150 miles per hour with higher gusts. The storm is a Category 4 hurricane on the Saffir-Simpson scale, but some fluctuations in intensity are likely during the next day or two. Hurricane Irma will continue to track west just north of the Greater Antilles and through the Bahamas over the next 3 days. On Saturday night, the storm is expected to make a hard turn right, after which it becomes more difficult to predict the exact path. On Thursday and Friday, Hurricane Irma will pass just north of Hispaniola and Cuba as it moves into the southeast Bahamas. Then the storm could reach South Florida on Saturday night. It has become more likely that Irma will make landfall in southern Florida as a dangerous major hurricane, the National Hurricane Center said Thursday afternoon, and bring life-threatening storm surge and wind impacts to much of the state. Landfall is possible anywhere in South Florida, including the heavily populated Miami-Fort Lauderdale areas. The northeast coast of Florida, coastal Georgia, and South Carolina are also at risk of a landfall, but the uncertainty is higher for areas farther north. A hurricane watch is in effect for South Florida, the Florida Keys, Lake Okeechobee, and Florida Bay. We expect that will be extended northward Thursday night. The storm surge watch was issued for the same area due to the potential for water to rise well above normally dry land at the coast as the storm approaches. The storm reached its maximum strength at 185 miles per hour on Wednesday and Thursday, but has since weakened slightly. It is forecast to slowly weaken over the next several days, but will remain a major hurricane, with the potential for devastating impacts on South Florida through the weekend. If Hurricane Irma makes landfall in Florida, it could be a Category 3 or 4 when it is so. What are the immediate concerns? Hispaniola, the Bahamas, and Cuba are at immediate risk from Hurricane Irma. Catastrophic winds, flooding, and storm surge are likely. Mudslides are also a major threat in mountainous areas of Hispaniola and Cuba. Will Hurricane Irma make landfall in the U.S.? It's not certain the hurricane will make landfall, but all of the coast from the Florida Keys to North Carolina are at risk and should be making preparations and heeding evacuation orders. It cannot be overstated how dangerous this storm will be. If Irma strikes the U.S., when will that happen? Ultimately, the timing of landfall will depend on where it occurs. Florida is at risk sooner than, say, the Carolinas. It is impossible to predict at this point exactly where and when the hurricane could make landfall, if at all. The arrival time estimates: South Florida, Saturday night into Sunday morning, North Florida, Sunday night into Monday morning, Georgia, Monday, South Carolina, Monday, North Carolina, Monday, Tuesday is a Florida landfall certain. No, but it seems likely. The question is where exactly in Florida it could happen. All of the Florida coast, from the Keys to the Georgia-Florida border, are at risk for landfall. Even if the storm does not make a direct landfall in Florida or the southeast, the impacts will be severe. Storm surge, dangerous winds, and inland flooding are all among the likely threats. Power outages could last 4 days in some locations. When was the last time a major hurricane struck Florida? The last major hurricane, registering as a Category 3 storm or stronger, to make landfall in Florida was Hurricane Wilma in October 2005. Wilma was also the last major hurricane to make landfall anywhere in the United States until Harvey struck Texas late last month. Is it rare to have back-to-back major hurricane landfalls in the U.S.? Less than a week after Hurricane Harvey dissipated over Texas, another major hurricane threatens the U.S. coast. It is very rare to have back-to-back major hurricanes make landfall on the U.S. mainland. According to the National Hurricane Center, it's only happened twice before that we know of. 1893 the Charleston Hurricane Category 3 and Sherrier Caminada Hurricane Category 4. 2004 Hurricane Ivan made landfall on the Gulf Coast as a Category 3. Then Hurricane Jean made landfall as a Category 3 on Hutchinson Island, north of Miami. Yeah.